Okay, so we're going to officially, start up the year right now. As some of you might know, my name is Moshe Gordon. I'm the Rosh Hashiva of Yisrael Lev in Eretz Yisrael on Telstone. And the truth is, some of the faces on the screen are past Talmidim, current Talmidim. Some others. We're very, very happy that you have a spread of various people from throughout the country, different places that people are involved with NCSY back at home. And this is really a great opportunity to be able to delve into a pre Shavuos topic. I think we all understand the challenge that's there, which is not having our normal kinds of framework, which we've all been getting used to the past couple of weeks and months really already. And at the same time, there's something very, very special, Shavuos time in particular, as much as Pesach. The truth be told, is a family time. So sitting around the table with your immediate family for Seder is, that's what Pesach is all about. Shavuos always has a certain feeling of it. When we speak about Am Yisrael gathering around Har Sinai and all, joining together and banding together, the Birkas HaTorah, the receiving of the Torah that took place on Shavuos, was definitely not an individual thing. Every person by themselves received the Torah from Hashem, but bottom line is, we receive the Torah as a nation. Am Yisrael receives the Torah. And we have a very, interesting challenge this year, where a lot of us are really going to be not with the same groups and not in the same environments that we're used to. Part of the feeling of being a part of a tzibur, being part of a community, being part of, the Jewish nation, so to speak, is going to be a little bit missing. So we might just be, sitting around wherever where we are right now. I'm assuming the guys that are in the car are not going to be in that car over Shavuos, hopefully. But certainly the rest of us probably are going to be, more or less just sitting around the same exact places where we're in, right now. And the goal of this, this really wonderful program that NCSY initiated, of being able to get lots of different, teens from across the country and really turn you into we'll call you mechanchem, educators and ambassadors, to be able to bring Torah ideas into your own homes, whatever exact environment you're going to be finding yourselves in over the course of Shavuos, and not just learn things for yourself, but also walking inspired enough to try to share some of the ideas with others. So a lot what we're going to do today is not only just to present some very, very basic and important ideas that are there about the topic of this particular year. It was a long expression called meaningful moments. We're going to explain about that in just a second. And then the subtitle was using the Birkas HaTorah, using the brachos that we make every single morning as part of davening, that really essentially are brachos about the concept of Torah study, about Talmud Torah, how to use those to be able to connect ourselves in a much, much greater way to our experience that's there in Torah and Torah learning. All of us, by virtue of the fact that we're here at this shir tonight, are people that care about Torah learning. We're all people that are excited about Torah learning. It's something that we're interested in growing in and doing more of as we're going along, and that's a great thing to do. And we're going to try to be able to show over the course of this year is how these very, very special moments, sometimes it's 30 seconds, it can be a minute, it can be 2 minutes, and maybe it's going to be more after we're done with today's year, that we spend the time saying or reciting the Birkas HaTorah at the beginning of our Shacharis in the morning. And we're going to really show how that bracha can, and if it's looked at and understood properly, really transform a person's experience of Torah into something very, very, very different. And the truth is much closer to what Hashem really wanted and expected when it came to the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, the mitzvah of Torah learning. I do want to make just one quick request, since there is an array of people that are here with the shir. The truth is I don't really know everyone personally 100% yet. A lot of you do, yes, no. If there are things that I say or terms that are used that are not 100% clear to anybody, 100% please stop me and ask me to explain. I try to make everything as clear as possible, and explain all the concepts, in as good of an English as we can possibly have for someone who's had the benefit of living here in Eretz Yisrael for the past 20-something years. But thank God, the English is still great and fine, and we all should be good to go. In just a second, I'm going to turn back over to the screen share, and enable us to actually look at the sheets that I prepared for you. I know there is some little option on Zoom to send the things out to everybody back on your computers or phones right now. For some reason that is not working with me right now. I think that's always the lesson in Zoom. It never quite exactly works the way you want when exactly you want it. Although it really is an amazing bracha to have. But I will, God willing, I do have your email addresses from when you signed up for this year, so I will try to to send it out to everybody afterwards, so you have something to to hold on to and recreate. We are also keeping a theme with what the shiurim are all about in this program. We're going to try to give little tips that are there, that in case you are actually, and I really hope you are, I'm going to be able to share over some of the ideas over the course of the Shavuos and Shabbos with friends or family, so you'll have certain techniques, moves, ideas of how to be able to present the things as best as we possibly can. So I'm just sort of going to take you right now, all the pictures on the screen, and bank them off to the side a little bit. But I still do want to keep you here because I like watching you guys while we're learning. But direct you over to the to the Marmakomo sheets that are here. Just for those that I'm looking at right now, just by either shaking your heads or putting up one of those little reaction things, you can the screen is shared. You can see everything fine. You see the Word doc in front of you.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Perfect. Because I got some confirmation, and we are going to be good to go. I'm going to try to move it over a little bit so we can do two things at the same time. Like I tried before, and then we're going to start up. Okay. So let us begin over here. Okay. So I started off with four very, very quick points that are worth a while to to think about when we approach the topic that we're going to learn. Like we said, I really like to explain to you also why the topic is important and thoughts that we can share with others. We're going to be discussing, as we said in the course of this year, the saying, the recitation of Birkas HaTorah every single morning. If we don't say Birkas HaTorah every morning, hopefully after this year we're going to start, saying something very worth a while to be able to do. And as I mentioned over here in point number one, there's a real value of learning about mitzvahs that we do on a regular basis. In other words, there are things that we do that maybe we grew up doing, maybe we took upon ourselves, more recently. But the more we actually are able to know about the things that we do on a regular basis, I think it really is a sort of an obvious point. But the greater our connection and understanding to those things are, if it's just quote unquote Chinese to us, if it's meaningless words that are mumbling out on a page, even if we're reading the translation on the side in an English translated siddur, but to actually really study in depth a topic is something that's irreplaceable. And it's even more true when it comes to things that we actually do day in and day out. Those things that we're doing every single day are usually indicators that those are very important things that are there in the Torah's eyes. Sometimes we don't appreciate that the things that are the most important are the ones that we do all the time. The Torah wants us to never lose sight of these important principles and ideas and experiences. The things that are less important that we can live without are the things that are going to come up once a year, and so on and so forth. So whereas for some of us, I'm just using Rosh Hashanah as an example, blowing the shofar is like a wow an hour a year, but that's the truth. It happens once a year, so it's easier to go wow over blowing a shofar, Tekiah shofar. But the truth be told, it really is just the opposite, that the things that we do every single day, the tefillah that we say every day, the shema that we say every day, the Torah learning, or the Birkas HaTorah that we're learning about today that we say every day, those are the most important things that the Torah never wants us to be disconnected from. As we pointed out in point number two, and again, for yourself right now and for others that you're sharing with, knowing the sources, knowing the makoros, is always going to help us understand the concepts and the messages that are there, which is a long-winded way of saying that the more we actually know what does the Torah have to say about something, where does it say in the Chumash, what does it say in the Gemara, what does it say in the Halacha, and when we actually know the sources, when we know the makoros, we're going to walk away with a totally different concept of what that experience is. And most importantly for us, we're going to be able to walk away with a totally different appreciation of the message that mitzvah sends to us. Because every single mitzvah that we do and every single halacha that we keep always has a point and a message that the Chazal or the Torah itself wants us to learn. If we know the topic and we know what we're doing, we're going to walk away impacted by that. Number 3, whenever there's a mitzvah that deals with a text, right? Like, for example, these brachos that we're going to learn about, analyzing the exact text that's there in the, whether it's a piece in the Chumash that we're learning, certainly when it's a analyzing the siddur and the tefillot that we're saying, learning and analyzing a text is always going to lead to new insights and new ideas into what the Chazal were trying to impart. When they sat down and authored the siddur, the Gemara points out this in Megillah Daf Yudzayin that the siddur was written with a Ruach HaKodesh, with nevuah, with prophecy to it. And the authors of the siddur wanted us to understand certain things. And if we look at and carefully analyze the words that are there, we walk away with a lot of new insights. And then in point number 4, this is part of the title of the shir, meaningful moments, because when we do all of those things that we just mentioned, that's going to transform our practice into something that really now is meaningful. I'm not just going to be blurting out words in a siddur. I'm not just going to be saying it in a dry kind of a fashion, but now I'm going to be using those, again, whether it's 30 seconds or whether it's an actual minute, but the time that I am saying those particular brachos, and again, today we're just focusing on the Birkas HaTorah, but it's true for every part of the siddur and every tefillah that's there. Those moments that we're saying that particular bracha or tefillah can become extremely meaningful to us in setting aside and charting out how we're going to be living our day, things I want to be thinking about, ideas that I want to have internalized inside of me. And so let's try to do exactly that. When we speak about the idea of Birkas HaTorah, the brachos before Torah learning, and we're approaching the holiday of Shavuos, which is all about the Zman Matan Torah Seinu, the day of the giving of the Torah, there's probably no greater endeavor that we can be engaged in than trying to find ways to connect to our Limud Torah, to our Torah learning in a much deeper and much more meaningful kind of way. So this is a great opportunity. And with no further ado, let's start up and jump into the actual content here of the shir. We're just going to move the screen a little bit up for you. And where'd that go? There we go. Okay. And let's start off now a little bit with, like we said earlier, learning some of the sources of the background of where these particular brachos are coming from. What are the Birkas HaTorah that we're saying every single day? We have some very, very important ideas that are over here. Number 1 is and I hope you have can actually see the paper. Number 1 is a very, very important fact. Okay. Again, if you have a chance to be learning with other people, you might want to present this as a little bit of what we'll call a challenge to people also. There's only 2 brachos that we make throughout the course of our lives that are actually what we call the chiyuv min haTorah, that the Torah itself obligates us to say. Okay? There are lots of brachos that we make. Basically, all of those brachos are what we call the chiyuv d'Rabbanan. Those are only rabbinic in nature. They're not part of the actual system of the Torah itself. But there are 2 brachos that stand out as being a chiyuv, an obligation from the Torah itself. One of them is going to be the Birkas HaTorah that we're going to be learning about, that we're going to learn about today. And the other one, just again, as a little trivia challenge that you might want to be asking other people. But the other bracha, hopefully you're aware what that is. That other bracha is what we call Birkas HaMazon, right? What we call benching in like the common words that we use. The bracha that we make after we ate a bread meal. Only those two brachos are actually an actual real chiyuv d'oraisa. Any other bracha is going to remain only rabbinic in nature and not more than that. Sorry, just get us all balanced on the screen. Now that's a very, very, very important thought that we just mentioned. There are two times that the Torah says that Hashem himself says, I want you to make a bracha. You should be davening or praying for something. Sustenance, food, right, bread, etc., a meal, and Torah. Okay? And it's sort of obvious if we take a look at those two things that Torah and food are definitely representing two different arenas or two different areas in our lives. Food is a pretty obvious thing. Food is what keeps us alive and gives us sustenance on a very base physical level. You don't eat, you have a problem. And a person can't survive without food. Right? So that's what keeps us going on a physical sense. Torah, right, on the other hand, is not really a physical sustenance at all, but listen to the important parallel that's here. Studying Torah, Talmud Torah, is not just something that we do because we want to know a lot about the Torah, we want to know about the mitzvos, and we want to know what we have to do and how to keep things. But what we just picked up on over here is that the endeavor of limud Torah, of Torah study, is viewed as an act of sustenance. Sustenance means we can't survive without that, right? And we all understand on a very physical level why if I fast for a couple of days, I'm really going to get weakened. I'm really not going to be functioning. But what we're noting over here is by these two brachos being grouped together, there are two areas of sustenance on a physical level and on a spiritual level. We call it in our ruchni, a spiritual world also, that the limud Torah is not just an act of I got to know the Torah and I want to learn the Torah, but the idea that we're now picking up on is that the Torah is telling us this is a basic facet in your life which out with you can't really survive. Now, a lot of people might say, what do you mean? I live my life without learning and I'm doing fine, because of course we're not always sensitive. We're not always sensitive to our spiritual existence, right? That by definition, the spiritual parts of us are things that we can't grab with our hands, we can't touch. Those aren't things that we're actually able to physically experience in the world. But the spiritual world is something that is very, very real to us. And here, right, by virtue of the fact that we're understanding that these two brachos are parallel brachos, your physical sustenance and your spiritual sustenance, that puts the learning of Torah on a very, very, very high kind of a pedestal. It's very interesting. If you look over here on one of the sources, you'll see, again, we're not going to read everything inside, but I want you to take a look at them. The Sefer HaChinuch, which is one of the basic svarim that list all of the mitzvos of the Torah. So the Sefer HaChinuch, when he discusses benching, Birkas HaMazon, he's the one who makes this point that there's these two brachos get paralleled to each other, Birkas HaMazon and Birkas HaTorah. And as we put in the red part in front of you, that the Torah is coming along and tells us that there are two things over here that you need to be able to survive in your life. When it comes to food, the Sefer HaChinuch notes that the bracha is made after you're done eating, because your body only really understands a physical gain and a physical benefit. So when my body is happy because I just fed it, so then I'm going to make a bracha after I ate that food. On the other hand, the Sefer HaChinuch says my seichel, my intellect, and my neshama and my soul. So that's something that's much more sublime and much more sophisticated that's there. And that part of my existence understands the benefit and the gain even before I actually got to the quote-unquote pleasure and the sustenance from the learning. And therefore, the Sefer HaChinuch explains the bracha of Torah is made not after we learn, but before we're going to learn, because the benefit is really already felt and is already noted, specifically because this bracha is something that's made about our, like we said, our spiritual existence and our spiritual sustenance that's there. This concept is so beautifully highlighted by this very important Gemara we have over here in Brachos and Daf Mem Ches. I'm going to read to you one line. It's so pretty. The Gemara tells us, Birkas HaTorah minayin. How do I know? There's two Gemaras we're going to read about this. How do I know that there's such an idea of making a bracha before I learn? And the Gemara says there's a basic logic that's there. The Torah very clearly says that you have to make a bracha for your temporary life, which if you look in Rashi on that Gemara means Birkas HaMazon. You make a bracha when you eat food, and that food is only going to keep you going here in this temporary world that we live in. But certainly I'm going to be making a bracha when I'm doing an activity that's going to really keep me alive in Olam Haba, in the world to come, which is eternal, which is forever. So you see the Gemara itself is pointing out is that when we look at our sense of priorities in our life, right, I'm struck by the idea of, hey, listen, I'm going to make a bracha on food, but food, we like food, we really like food, and some of us really like food, but right, it's very, very short-lived. It's very, very temporary. But if the Torah says, I want you to care about that and make a bracha and bring Hashem into your food experience, how much more so when we speak about the real important things? And the most important thing is going to be our study of Torah, that I'm going to have to be making a bracha before I get involved and engaged in the study of Torah. The Ramban makes his point very, very well in his list of the mitzvahs also. This is found on the next source found on the page. When the Ramban points out, I'm going to read some of the words inside. B'chol eis shenikra b'Torah. We have to make a bracha every time we read in the Torah. Ala tova hagedola she'asa lana, because we make a bracha for the great favor, the unbelievable gift that Hashem gave us. Besito Toraso Eileno. He gave us this gift called the Torah. He taught us all the proper things that we're supposed to be doing. How do we get to our life, our real existence in the Olam Haba, in the next coming future world that's there? And once again, let's follow the thought before we actually now analyze what the brachas are about. What we basically just said was, here, when we open up a siddur in the morning, right, and we're about to say Birkas HaTorah, if we practice going through the motions, holding up a siddur over here, looking inside at the bracha, if we're actually practice doing the whole process that we're going to be describing tonight, already when we open up that page, we have something really, really impressive that we're doing. I have a mindset where I realize that, why am I about to make this bracha right now? I'm making this bracha because I understand, right, that today, if I want to be able to use my day today as a day that's going to contribute to my everlasting eternal existence, big thoughts, right? My everlasting eternal existence in the world to come, I know that the way I'm going to feed myself, the way I'm going to keep myself going is through the activity and the experience of Limud Torah, of opening whatever sefer it's going to be and learning from that. And the same way I don't want a day to go by without eating because I can't keep myself really doing so well in this world without whatever food I feel like eating today. I also realize that if I want my today to be meaningful, to sustain myself for what the Gemara calls Chaye Olam Haba, my life in the world to come, same thing, and it's even more important than the food that I eat. Food is, my body is going to, disappear in 120 years, but my neshama and my soul, that's there forever. So I really, really want to make sure that I have that focus that the Torah tells me about the Birkas HaTorah as being one of the Torah obligated brachos that are there. Right? So hopefully what we just picked up on over here is a very, very important, concept of how when we, like we just said, when we look back, like where is this coming from? What are we doing? Some basic facts about the mitzvah. There's a really important perspective, and really important outlook that I hope we just, picked up, on. Like I said before, please make sure to ask questions, if we have any, as we're going along. And I hope, like we sort of picked up on some of the, the thoughts that we can be conveying to others. I had a challenge, a little bit, with which the brachos are that are actual, Torah chiyuvim, Torah obligations, that are there. The comparison and the contrast really that we made between the bracha on Torah, which is before the activity, the bracha on food, Birkas HaMazon, which is after the activity. If we're learning with a group of people, and challenge people to share, their ideas and their thoughts about those things. And again, of course, of discussing quickly the importance and the balance that's there between things that are going on in Olam Hazeh, in this world right now, versus things that we're going to be meriting and able to enjoy in our time that we're going to spend forever in the Olam Haba. The next part on the sheet over here that we're going to look at, and this is a very very important idea, is the main source that the Chazal give for us for where do we derive from the Torah this idea of Birkas HaTorah. And it's going to take a little bit of explaining, but it's something that really is fascinating. There's another Gemara in Brachos and Daf Kaf Aleph, where the Gemara points out to us, I'm going to read the words of the Gemara inside. Minayin lebirkas haTorah lefaneha min haTorah. Where do I see and how do I know that the Torah wants me to make a bracha before I learn? So listen to the pasuk that the Gemara quotes over. It really is mind-boggling. It's found in Parshas Ha'azinu, the second to last parsha. If you want to look inside a Chumash at some point, it says as follows. I'm going to read and translate. Kishem Hashem Ekra. When in this context, it means when I read the Shem Hashem, when I read Hashem's name, Havu Godel Leilokeno, you're supposed to give greatness to our God. So the second part of that pasuk, we sort of understand where the allusion to a bracha is. Havu Godel Leilokeno, give greatness to our God, means you praise Hashem, you thank Hashem. That part we sort of can understand without too much of a problem. What's really striking though, and should be really striking to us, is what's the first part of that verse? What's the first part of that pasuk telling me? Kishem Hashem Ekra, right? When I read Hashem's name. Now let's stop and just ask ourselves a very basic question that's there, right? Because once again, we can't just read a line in Gemara and say, oh yeah, fine. The Gemara says that. We have to think about it and analyze it a little bit more. A person opens up a chumash, okay, and you're learning. Let's use this week's parsha as an example. You're learning Parshas Bamidbar. By the way, this is the last week that us here in Israel and you guys back there in Chutz La'aretz are going to be in the same parsha, because next week we have Parshas Naso. For people living out of Israel, you're already it's the second day of Shavuos, and we sort of split for a couple of weeks after this. But right now we have the same parsha, Parshas Bamidbar. And if you looked in the parsha, you're going to see that Parshas Bamidbar speaks about the census of how many Jews were there in the wilderness, in the camp of Klal Yisrael, when they walked through the Midbar for 40 years. The different divisions, there were X amount of people in the Shevet of Ruvain, X amount of people in Levi, X amount of people in Dan and Asher, etc. Right? And if you're like most people out there, when you read numbers, right, there are X amount of people in that family, it gets a little tedious. We don't remember the numbers. I have a feeling if I quiz anybody, and if you quiz me, I'm going to fail this miserably. Right now, if you ask me how many people were actually in the Shevet of Binyamin, I have absolutely no idea, even though I did read it on this past week. And if you ask me how many names of different, the people in the family, also no clue, right? But yet, look what this Gemara said. When I read that story in Parshas Bamidbar, the pasuk that we're quoting describes that activity as Kishem Hashem Ekra. When I read Hashem's name, I'm not reading Hashem's name, I'm reading a story, right? I'm reading a story about Avram Avinu, I'm reading a story about Moshe, I'm reading a story about the Jews in the Midbar, the Chet, the sin of the Egel, of the golden calf, whatever it might be. What do you mean I'm reading Hashem's name? When I open up a Mishnah, right? Again, a lot of you that I see back here on the screen, certainly the ones that I know you're learning, Gemara, Mishnayos, etc. back in whichever schools and yeshivas you're in. How many people, when we open up whatever Masechta was that we're learning, how many people are reading Hashem's name? You're reading different halachos, different areas, different topics, a debate about this, a debate about that. Why is that described as reading Hashem's name? And this is the source for this idea of the bracha. Here there's an unbelievable insight that we really have to pick up on, and we're going to explain based on a teaching of the Ramban. And this Ramban is actually in the very first pasuk in Chumash, in the very, very beginning of Sefer Bereshis. Let's read, a line of the Ramban together inside. Back on the screen in front of us. Od yesh biyadenu. We have a tradition in our hands, Ramban says. A Kabbalah shel emes. This is a true tradition, right? So he's trying to tell you this is like the real deal. Kikol HaTorah Kula, the entire Torah, this is the bold part, Shemosav Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the entire Torah is names of Hashem. I'm going to read a little more and then we'll explain. Shatevos, the words of the Torah, Mischalkos L'Shemos Be'inyan Echad, Ki'ilu Tachshov Aderach Mashal. Says, I was in the middle of a sentence, says the Ramban, the words of the Torah can be divided up a little bit differently than you might see them or we might see them when we look at the Torah. He says, Derech Mashal, let me give you an example. In the pasuk of Bereshis, right, what famous pasuk, Bereshis bara Elokim. Says the Ramban, Yitchalek letevos acheros. You can divide that pasuk up into a lot of different words. Kegon, Berosh, Yatbara, Elokim. Same letters, divided up differently. Do you remember like when you were in elementary school, like in first grade, when you were learning how to write, and the teachers used to tell me all the time that like, you got to like put spaces in between words, otherwise you just got like a lot of random letters on the page and no one can read, what you're writing. So says the Ramban, when you look at the Torah, again, this is a very, very important idea that the truth is if we had an extra hour tonight, we could talk about this, but we don't yet right now. But says the Ramban, when you look at the Torah, we have one text of the Torah in front of us, but if you were to be able to put all of the words together, which essentially is the same Torah, but there are, I don't want to say unlimited, but there are many, many, many different permutations and divisions of words that you could have. And says the Ramban, all of those different divisions that are there in the words of the Torah are representing names of Hashem that are coded and embedded and hidden into the Torah itself. So no matter what pasuk I'm reading, right, even though it sounds to me like I'm just reading a story about, again, Yosef or Moshe or David or Yoshua, what I'm really reading, the Ramban says, is somehow or another a very deep, mystical representation of Hashem himself, one of the names of the Ribbon Hashem, one of the names of Hashem. A very, very interesting idea. Now, that's very, very important for us though, because what we really know, if you put that Ramban together with the Gemara, right, join the two together, we have a very basic insight into what this teaching of the Gemara was. How do I know that I have to make a bracha before I learn? So let's look back at that pasuk. Kishem Hashem Ekra. When I read Hashem's name, which we just learned means anytime I open up any sefer that's there in the Torah, I'm encountering and experiencing Hashem himself. Havu Godel Elokeinu, give greatness, make a bracha to Hashem. Wow, right? That's pretty heavy. Right? So I thought that I was just reading a story. I thought I was learning a halacha. I thought I was, reading a mishnah. I thought I was analyzing something in a Gemara, fancy lumdus or whatever else we might do in the different environments we're in. And all of a sudden we're told, whoa, that's true, but realize what's going on beneath the surface. Beneath the surface, when you are learning, you are reading about, whether or not we see this with our own two eyes right now and understand with our brain or not, what you're reading about is deep secrets and understandings about Hashem himself. He's in there, embedded, encoded into the Torah. So a person who's reading a pasuk in the Chumash, a person who's learning whatever piece of Torah is going to be, beneath that surface, he's really now experiencing and encountering Hashem himself. I'll give an example. An example I like to give. It's a little bit harder to do right now because we're actually not in person. But let's we can all do this sort of for ourselves. If you look at, just look at yourself on the, don't you have to look on the screen, but look at yourself when you're sitting there. And let's say you're wearing a shirt, right? So we have a shirt on top over here. So you would imagine for a second, if someone was to grab onto your shirt, right? Grab on over here. So if someone was to ask me, right, Gordon, what are they grabbing onto, right? So I think, some guy's grabbing onto me right now, right? You're holding me right now. And we all know, if you look a little bit carefully, more carefully, no one's holding me right now when they're doing this. They're not grabbing me, they're grabbing my shirt. It just happens to be that my body is in my shirt. So if like you're grabbing onto my shirt, you're going to be able to like maneuver me, a little bit, right? When you grab onto, whatever it's going to be. So, okay, you're in control, a little bit more. Again, stay away. We don't touch people and all of that. But, right, in theory, right, that's what's, happening. If you're, in the middle of playing a tackle football game and you grab onto the guy's jersey, right? So you can probably, if you hang on tight enough, you can probably end up knocking him down and making the tackle, even though you didn't actually grab his body when you were playing that game. Listen carefully to the example that this Gemara just taught us over here. And again, something you want to use to illustrate for yourself. Use the comparison that the Torah is like an outer garment for Hashem. The things that we read in the Torah, the things that we're learning about in the Torah are an external representation of something very deep beneath the surface. So part of the excitement that's there when a person is learning, and it's going to take a while to be able to get the feel about this, and the truth is we're going to have to develop these ideas further. But anytime we're involved with learning, what we have to realize, and this is very exciting, what we're doing, is that, you know what, hey, I'm somehow or another grabbing onto Hashem, who's embedded and encoded into that Torah. And if I learn enough, and if I learn well, and I focus, I'm going to be touched by that. Because whereas, again, maybe you've heard these examples before, I hope you have, whereas if I'm just, studying, something in a math class, in school, or from whatever other, subject it might be interesting, it might be fascinating, and I'm not a math fan myself, but it might be interesting, and it might be fascinating, whatever your favorite, topic is. But at the end of the day, it ends up being an intellectual activity alone. When you're involved with a deep analysis of Torah, we're not talking about just an intellectual grasp of a topic. What we're talking about is an encounter, a one-on-one, face-to-face experience with Hashem himself. He's there in that Torah that we're learning right now. And that's a very, very exciting thing. So now, let's review how do we get back to the quote-unquote meaningful moment opportunity. We're going to open up that siddur, right? And we're going to be saying the Birkas HaTorah. And when we open up the siddur and say that Birkas HaTorah, we're aware that, you know what I'm doing right now? When I open up the siddur and say that Birkas HaTorah, I am right now doing something that enables me to connect to Hashem, connect to God himself that's embedded there in that Torah. That puts my learning experience in a totally different kind of a light. I'm not just reading Torah anymore. I realize, hey, you know what? I'm connecting to something so far beyond the world that I'm living in, so spiritual, so deep, so major, that you got to be crazy not to get excited about that, not to really, really get pumped by that. So if I'm going to be involved in opening up that sefer during the day, and I appreciate what that bracha, where that bracha comes from. This is a bracha that represents, Torah is meeting up with Hashem himself. Hey, I want to do that. And that's a date that I definitely want to go on. I want to be making sure that I'm going to really take advantage of. Let's take a look a little bit more at the brachos. We say we're going to look at the text of the brachos. I'm going to try to wrap things up soon. We have a couple of very, very important ideas that are here. The first of the brachos I have in front of you. We sort of tried to color code everything so we can see the lines that we're going to be analyzing a little bit more. The first part of the bracha we're all familiar with, right? Baruch, etc. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lasok b'divrei Torah. Translated into English, Hashem commanded us to work lasok b'divrei Torah, to work in Torah learning, to work in the words of the Torah. I put down over here number one, right? An idea just to stop it and catch the analysis. Background fact is that every single bracha that we ever make is always going to be defining for us the nature of whatever mitzvah or activity that we're doing. Okay? In other words, we made a bracha on Pesach, al achilas matzah. We know the mitzvah is eat matzah. Okay? The tilas lulav, the mitzvah is taking the lulav and so on and so on and so forth. Okay? So when you look at that bracha, I see something very, very interesting. And the truth be told, if you actually really look back in the different mefarshim, you notice there's actually a debate what exactly the wording of the bracha is over here. And this one was chosen for a very, very important reason. La'asok b'divrei Torah, to work at learning. Okay? So again, if you're actually going to be learning with other people, like the goal of this, shir is, you want to throw out a very basic thought question, okay? And you can be doing that thinking, right now, for yourselves, is if you were the ones who were writing the bracha, right? What word would you have used to have described what Torah learning actually is? In other words, using the phrase, Hashem commanded us to work in Divrei Torah is a very interesting line. I might have thought to use expressions like, Hashem wants me to know the Torah. He wants me to learn the Torah, right? Those would have made a lot of sense, a lot of sense to me, tremendous amount of sense. According to many versions of the bracha, the text was supposed to be al Divrei Torah. Hashem commanded us about the Torah. Okay, so I understand. I got to go learn the Torah. What's the significance of the line la'asok b'divrei Torah? Why is that the phrase that's there? It's a beautiful teaching of the Maharal, Prague. The Maharal, I'm going to just summarize what the Maharal says over here. The truth is, this idea is found in other Sfarim as well, but the Maharal says it very, very nicely. Where he points out to us, and this is a whole massive discussion, by itself. The Maharal says we learn from here a very, very basic, and again, I want to add a very empowering, incredibly powerful idea about Torah. Says the Maharal, had the Chazal told me that the mitzvah was to learn Torah, what that basically would mean is that if I sat down, I tried to learn, and I got it wrong, right? I didn't quite get things correctly. I didn't really understand what the pshat in the Gemara that I was learning was. I thought the halacha was something totally different. I said mutter and the halacha was asur. I said it's okay and the halacha is no, you can't do that. So if the mitzvah was to know Torah or to learn the Torah, then you got to learn it right and you got to make sure you're not making mistakes and so on and so forth. Says the Maharal, an incredible idea. The mitzvah is not to learn. The mitzvah is not to know. Those are important ideas, and there might be other reasons why we want to know them. So you do want to know the right things to do. But the main mitzvah, and I'll tell you why this is so important in a second, is la'asok b'divrei Torah, to work. Meaning to say, as the Maharal explains, if you put in a solid hour in a base medrash learning, right? Solid 18 hours in a base medrash, and I was really, really trying, right? And I didn't get it. It was a very hard piece of Gemara I was learning, right? Or the, I don't know, I read the pasuk, 15 times, and something just was not making any real, major sense to me. There was a Tosas I was learning, so I haven't been learning Nazir right now. The Tosas I was learning, Nazir this morning. Hey, it's like a what? I don't know. It just wasn't making sense. I wasn't getting the idea. Says the Maharal, right? Unbelievably important. I see some of the faces again. Says the Maharal, unbelievably important over here. Your mitzvah, right, is to try your best, is to work at the learning. You didn't get it? That's okay, but you tried. It didn't come out right? That's okay. I always give a tongue-in-cheek example. We always hold like Beis Hillel over Beis Shammai. I worked at a sugi in the Gemara really, really, really hard. And I figured out that the halacha is like Beis Shammai. It's not true. That's just utterly false, right? But you're not going to lose out on your reward for that learning for that day, right? Not if you're on purpose messing up and trying to distort things, but you're trying your hardest. It just didn't work out exactly the way you want. It was really, 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 tricky. It was difficult, etc. But if you put in the time and you put in the effort, you are doing the Torah learning that's there. 100% fulfillment of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. And there's no one out there, right, that shouldn't get encouraged to be learning more and more and more once you hear that idea. Sometimes people say, I'm not the smartest guy out there, right? I don't have a great background. I started doing this, late in life. It's an Aramaic. It doesn't have vowels. You can make up hundreds of excuses, for not, getting involved in learning, right? The art school English was too hard for me. I don't know, whatever you might want to say. But, right, that's where this line of that bracha comes in. Every day, we get a quick reminder. My job today is to give it my best, to work at it, to try it, right? To make an effort, and then I'm in in the world of learning. Yeah, that's unbelievable, right? How much more am I going to want to get out there and do it, knowing that as long as I'm trying and I'm putting in an honest effort, that I'm good to go. Very, 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 very important thing to understand. Second point about the bracha. We're going to go up a little bit again back to the bracha, and notice there's something very interesting, right? I'm going to read and translate. Hashem, make Torah sweet in our mouths. Okay. Now, let's come back to Pesach again. We made a bracha before we ate matzah, right? The bracha was al achilas matzah, and I made a bracha that Hashem commanded me to eat matzah. That's where it starts. That's where it ends. I eat matzah, and let's say I happen to like matzah, but let's say you're a guy that doesn't like matzah so much, right? How important is it that the matzah be sweet in your mouth? Not that, but you gotta do what you gotta do, like chew, swallow, and you did your mitzvah. When was the last time a person ever davened that doing the mitzvah of who knows what, of saying Shema should be enjoyable or sweet to me? You got to do what you got to do, and that's the way it is. When it comes to Torah learning, for some reason, we're struck by this idea. Hey, wait a second. I am davening every single morning that the Torah should be sweet to me. Now, question that you want to ask yourself is, and we all want to ask ourselves, well, why? Why is that so important? Why is that here? I can put on tefillin in the morning. I can do a chesed. I can do whatever mitzvah is out there. And I don't have to enjoy it. It doesn't have to be sweet or fun to me. So why does Torah have to be fun? And why is it so important to ask Hashem, please Hashem, make the Torah learning something that's meaningful and significant to me. So here we have a really, really, really important idea that's there. Again, if you want to read through all the sources that we're going to send out, you have them on the page in front of you. And we'll, hopefully we'll get them out to everybody. We're not going to read all the things inside, but just to point out once again some basic ideas that are there. One thing that a person has to realize about Torah, right, is that because our Torah learning, like we were discussing before, is an encounter with Hashem Himself. I'm meeting up with Hashem. I'm experiencing Hashem. I'm getting to know Hashem. Hashem is somebody, and is a being that is inherently pleasurable, that's enjoyable. There's nothing better, nothing more good, and nothing greater than Hashem at all. And the more and more Torah is sweet to me, the more I like it, the more I enjoy it, the more and more I'm going to meet up. I want to meet up with Hashem, the more and more I'm going to want to have that encounter. There's a beautiful teaching of a sefer called the Eglei Tal. When I can give the background of who he was exactly, he was a great Hasidic Rebbe. And the Eglei Tal is actually a sefer on Hilchos Shabbos, but this is the introduction to that sefer. He speaks about the importance that part and parcel of the mitzvah of learning is the ta'anug, is the enjoyment that a person gets out of learning. And he explains the more you enjoy learning, the more you become attached to learning, the more you want to do it. Now think very carefully. I always say that this is one of the most important weapons that every single Jew has, and sometimes we don't even realize it, we don't think about it. Imagine how amazing it would be if when I opened up a sefer, it was the most enjoyable thing to me. I never want to put it down. I never want to stop. Right? I'm sure you probably know people, or maybe it's not you because maybe we're all an amazing group over here. But you might have heard of people who open up a sefer to learn, and they don't enjoy it so much, right? So what do? Boom, you close it and it's over. You try for a couple of minutes, and then that's it. I'd rather be playing ball or hanging out with a friend. Do the fun stuff. Sitting and trying to learn is not always so enjoyable. Here we have a direct channel where a person says a heartfelt tefillah every single day to the Ribono Shel Olam. Hashem, listen, here's the deal. I know that Torah is supposed to be the sweetest thing in the world, and I also know that I don't totally feel like, being honest, I don't totally feel like that right now. But I want to feel like that. I want it to be enjoyable. I want it to be sweet. I want it to be something I want to do. Right now, I'm lacking some of the abilities. I'm lacking that experience. I'm lacking that feeling. But Hashem, listen, this is what I want. This is where I'd like to get to. Please do me a favor and help me out. Now, you got to be nuts to think that if Hashem hears a tefillah like that coming from us, that he's not going to respond to that. And I will tell you, I've been involved with learning, with teens and adults for many, many, many years. This is tried and proven. When we start taking the time in the morning to not just rush through the bracha, but to try to mean that. Hashem, please make this sweet and enjoyable to me. I want to get so excited about learning that I just never want to put it down. I gave you a passage over here in a sefer called the Ruach HaChaim, written by one of the greats named Chaim of Volozhin. Chaim Volozhiner was one of the main students of the Gra, the Vilna Gaon. And there's something very powerful that he writes over here, where he tells us that you want to get to a point in your Torah learning that you never want to stop, where a person gets to the level where he says, you know what, I don't even want to go to lunch today. I just rather learn, and I don't want to go to sleep tonight. I just want to stay involved with my Gemara, because the sweeter the Torah is to me, the more I'm gonna just be totally excited about it, totally stuck to it. So that request that we make over there in the bracha, and again, perhaps if we're discussing or learning about the bracha, we might want to begin a discussion about what holds us back from enjoying learning. What are some of the things that make it challenging for me to do? But how this kind of a request can, again, one of the cool things about God is that he's God. And he can do anything. And if you, it's like a basic thing, he's smiling over there. It's actually very, very true. And if you go to God himself and say, hey, let's work this out. I want this to happen. I want this to work. That works, because he can pull that off, right? And a person might say, I don't know, I'm not a genius, so how am I going to understand? It doesn't make a difference. God can do anything. You just got to want it and ask for it to make it real to you. And he does all the rest. Let's talk very, very quickly about some of the other points here in the bracha, because it's getting a little bit late. And I want to make sure we at least touch upon some of the things that we can be thinking about. Going back up to the bracha, we ask Hashem that we and our descendants, and listen carefully to this phrase, it should ring a bell to you now, kulano, the yellow part, kulano yodei shemecha. We all want to know your name. Right, like I said, that sounds familiar now. Torah learning, right, is not just about learning the rules and what I can do and what I can't do. Torah learning is about getting to know Hashem. And I want to have that, what we call a devekus. I want to be able to have that connection to Hashem right now. I want to feel that. And when we're asking for that, like we said, in the previous phrase, that happens and that works. But we've got to realize that that's what we're doing when we're engaged in learning and getting to know Hashem. We want to be able to learn a Torah, what's called lishma, for the right reasons. And this is a whole massive, concept that we want to try to analyze. What does that mean to learn Torah for the right reasons? What's the goal of learning Torah? I'm going to leave that up to you to discuss with your parents, friends. Be in touch with me after, if you want also. There's one little insight that we put over here on the page, but there's more. There's definitely more that's there, right? But we're asking Hashem in this bracha, listen, I want to be motivated for the right reasons, the right goals, the right purposes when I'm involved with learning Torah. Torah lishma, which is a very high level for a person to be able to be on, but it's accessible to all. And then we make the final bracha, right? And this, to me, is one of the most emotional parts of the bracha. Hashem is a Varach at Hashem HaMelamed Torah Le'amo Yisrael. Hashem teaches the Torah to his people, teaches the Torah to Am Yisrael. We said that maybe perhaps so many times that it loses, it might lose its meaning to us. When we make that bracha, Melamed Torah Le'amo Yisrael, there's something that's incredibly powerful that's there. When we make the bracha, Melamed Torah Le'amo Yisrael, we got to stop and realize that this is an unreal line, really unreal. Hashem teaches the Torah to the Jewish people. Now, if you're like most people, and I'm definitely one of those guys also, okay, you open up a sefer and you think that you're learning. That's what it feels like. I'm reading and I'm translating, I'm understanding, I'm asking, I'm answering, I'm engaged, I'm listening, right? And I'm learning something, right? And the same exact way I can pick up whatever book it is that I'm interested in. You know, you guys know what a book is, right? Whatever book, or an online book, an actual book, whatever that might be. But I pick up a book and I'm reading something. Hey, how about that? Okay, I'm picking up a book and I'm reading that. So, okay, I'm learning something right now, right? And that's for sure the way it is. But here's the catch, and let's cut to a couple of different angles over here. The Chazal just taught us that when you learn Torah, it's actually not like that. Hashem is teaching us. Now remember, people don't like grammar so much always, and Hebrew grammar is maybe even harder for us, but the word hamelamed Torah is what we call a present tense. Not that Hashem taught us the Torah on Shavuos, back in the first, Shavuos, Zman Matan Torah Seinu in Har Sinai. Hamelamed Torah li'amo Yisrael means Hashem is teaching Torah to every single Jew. I open up a sefer. Hashem is there, right in front of me, putting divrei Torah into my mind, into my heart, into my neshama. Hashem is giving me a gift. Now, why do I need that? Here are the questions you want to think for yourselves or share. Why is that? Why can't I just read it and know it? So let's think about some of the things that we discussed tonight, right? Excuse me, this afternoon on a different time zone. I can technically say this morning because it's after midnight over here, but whatever planet we're on right now. But let's stop and think about some of the concepts that we were learning. Torah is a connection to Hashem himself. He's there in that Torah. Hashem is unfathomable. He's infinite. Right? And for us to be able to really grasp Torah, it's not just something that we read like a science book. To be able to really grasp Torah, right? It's a gift that Hashem himself is giving us. It's not just a what do you call it? It's not just an exercise they're involved. It's such a sublime, deep spiritual experience that Hashem himself says, I'm going to help you out over here, and I'm going to be making that Torah work for you. But there's also another important idea, not just how wow and important Torah is, but something that's also very, very significant. We speak about how to connect to Torah through an understanding of this bracha. I think there's something that's like knock your socks off. This is really unbelievable. Sometimes a person is challenged when they're learning something. Right? Like we keep saying, I don't really understand it. It's hard, right? Depending where we're at in our journey in learning, maybe foreign language issues that we might have, concepts that we've never heard of before. It's difficult to do. But we always have to remember, right, when we want to get pumped and psyched, we have the best possible teacher and the best possible tutor that you could ever hope for when it comes to learning. Right? Hashem himself is the Melamed Torah, the Amo Yisrael, is the teacher of Torah to every single person. So all I have to do is say to Hashem, hey, do me that favor, right? Let's go for it. If I'm going to put in the work, right? Remember that bracha we said at the beginning, la'asok b'divrei Torah. If I want to work at the learning and put in the effort and show Hashem that I want this experience, I want that closeness to you, I want to be able to get to know you, I want to be able to have what we call the devekus, an attachment to you, then Hashem says, here you go. I'm going to teach it to you. I'm going to embed it inside of your heart. I'm going to plant it inside your brain. It's going to elevate and touch your neshama in the most beautiful possible way, that's there. And every single person can do that. There's no exception that's out there. And this is an unbelievable thing to share with others and to remind yourselves constantly. Every single one of us, if we're going to daven for this well, if we're going to mean it and be osek and work at it, the sky is the limit. And literally the sky is the limit because it's coming straight from Shemaim. It's coming straight from heaven itself. We're getting taught that, that Torah. And that's something that like we keep mentioning is an incredibly empowering tool for a person to say Torah and greatness in Torah, to really know a lot and to know more and more and to enjoy and to love it and to never want to stop, right? Is something that's accessible to every single person. Now, the crazy thing is we just sat here and spoke about one paragraph of a bracha for over an hour, okay? We're not going to take an hour to say Birkas HaTorah in the morning, right? But if we review in our minds some of the ideas that we spoke about, to highlight the different lines that where they're the background behind the bracha, where the bracha comes from, why we make the bracha, and so on and so forth, we can conjure up very, very quick associations with ourselves. I'll tell you the truth, okay? And again, it's not a brag or a show off. It's just I'm older than you. I've been doing this for a long time. There's not a day that goes by that when I make birkas, I don't think of every single one of these things that I just shared with you. Every single one. It might happen at lightning speed. I've done it so many times that it's happening. But right, the more we train ourselves to think about the things we know. I learned something. I want to think about it. I want to put it into my life when I'm practicing that particular bracha, mitzvah, whatever it is that we're doing. You'll find yourself being able to turn on an inspiration in a very, very quick, kind of a way. If anyone out there has any, questions, comments, this and that, whether it's, right now, more than happy to, to take them. If you want to reach out, afterwards, that's great, great too. But it's definitely been a pleasure, to be learning with all of you. Looking forward to a lot more, in the future.